Welcome back to the show, everyone. On today's episode, I'm excited to have Captain Hoff, Stephen Hoffman. He is the CEO and captain at Founderspace. Captain Hoff, welcome to the show.
VJ, it's fantastic to be here.
Hey, I'm really excited to have you on the show. And just for the audience, can you walk us through your background and talk about how you got to where you are right now and just kind of enlighten the audience about what you do?
Sure, I've done a lot of stuff in my life, but I will cover some of the highlights. So I am the captain and CEO of Founderspace, which is a global startup incubator and accelerator. We work all over the world. We have 50 partners in 22 countries. I am also the author of 3 different books on startups. Make Elephants Fly, which is all about the elephant is your big idea and you want to get it off the ground and make it fly, even though it seems impossible. It's about that process. Surviving a Startup, which is exactly what the title says. How do you survive a startup? And that's published by HarperCollins. And The 5 Forces That Change Everything. And it's about how the latest technology emerging right now, brain-computer interfaces, nanotechnology, AI, space technology, CRISPR gene editing, how all this amazing technology is going to transform business, our lives, and society, and all the pertinent issues about that. And I'm just really excited to be on your show today.
Well, that is so exciting here. Okay, so you mentioned 3 books. You're an author and you're published, and I am really okay. You got my interest when you said Elephants Fly. Could you talk a little bit more about that first book? And I want to hear a little bit more of each one of your books.
Sure. So Make Elephants Fly goes into the process of radical innovation. Like you have an idea, you think it's brilliant in your head, but how do you get that idea out of your head and make it into something real? So we all have these ideas trapped in our heads and we don't know where to begin. And the interesting thing is, one of the premises of the book, which is really counterintuitive and breaks a lot of myths that people think when they're an entrepreneur, they think the idea is the most important thing. Like, I got to start it with an idea. I have to have this epiphany, this light bulb moment that will send me on my way to be an entrepreneur. Well, let me tell you, don't worry about your idea because your idea is probably wrong. And even if it's not entirely wrong, which is a lot of times the case, it's not completely right because if it's a new idea, if it's really groundbreaking and it's never been done before, you don't know enough at the beginning to really even understand what the full potential of the idea is. Now, I can give you some examples. Like a lot of us know this company. It started out as a dating site, a video dating site. And the entrepreneurs thought, wow, this video dating site's going to be amazing. You know, people are going to love to date on video. And sure enough, they found out after not too long, they built the whole thing, launched it. You know, nobody wanted to date on video. It was very awkward to meet people on video and start dating. So the site was dying. And then they wanted to share a large video file with their friends, and they had no way of doing it at the time. So they said, well, what if we uploaded it to our video dating site and literally just shared the link and had people watch it on our video dating site? They did it. It worked really well. And they're like, oh, and their friends asked, hey, can I do that? And they're like, sure, we could enable that. Well, you know what that company is today?
Dropbox?
That's YouTube.
Oh, YouTube.
That's YouTube. Like you would have never thought like it's you were saying Dropbox maybe, but no, it was YouTube. So it became this destiny. It was a backwards way of figuring out what their company really was. So you named the company. Slack was a game. It was literally a game when they started. Google, the giant company in the world, that was a nonprofit. Larry Page and Sergey Brin thought they'd never make a penny because all they were doing was helping academics at Stanford find research papers online. So of course, these companies changed a lot. Yelp, which we all love, the rating system was an afterthought. Giving it 5 stars was like an extra feature they added. It became the whole application. Whatever you're thinking of, you got to go through a process. Don't worry. Start with one idea, start with 20 ideas. That's the way to get going.
Wow, that's so interesting. Okay, so let's say I have an idea. How do you know whether you should pursue it or she just let organically mature into something else? Or kind of like, how do you not deviate?
I actually tell people don't have one idea because if you have one idea, you get really fixated on it. And then you kind of the idea becomes part of your identity and you feel like I have to sell people on the idea. And if the people don't listen to you, then you try to find other people who like it and you end up wasting a lot of time. I tell entrepreneurs, don't worry about the idea. have 20 ideas, and then go out and spend all your time getting the right team together. A team who cares about not a single idea, because that's probably not going to work anyway, but cares about making a change in a certain area. Like, we want to change how the fishing industry works. We're really there's overfishing, there's bycatch, the working conditions on these fishing boats, these factory fishing boats, is atrocious. We want to transform the fishing industry. Then, with your team, your 20 ideas and the ideas that all of your team members come up with, you engage the fishing industry and you start to figure out, like, what you think they want. Oh, you guys have to use this new fishing line, this high-tech fishing line, because it won't have any bycatch. They're like, well, how much does that line cost? And we're going to have to replace all of our nets and our lines to do that. Oh, no, thank you. Like, they're like, no, thank you. We don't want, you're like, but you're destroying the fish population. Well, they don't want to spend the money. So what you need to figure out is that intersection between, the changes you can make, the positive changes, and their needs. Like, you're never going to change an industry if you don't understand what their priorities are. So you find that intersection. And you're like, well, actually, we could design this line so it's much more efficient. The line will pay for itself within a year, and then you'll be making a profit, and you won't be, doing all this bycatch. You'll be making the fishing more sustainable, blah, 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 blah. Then all of a sudden their eyes light up and go, oh, well, here's a business that we could have. Or you find something entirely different in the fishing industry that you can fix that you didn't know, because they won't do that the first ideas you had. So that is the way to make your elephant fly.
That is so interesting. Okay, so backing up a little bit, you mentioned you need to spend your time getting a good team together. Could you talk about what makes up a good team?
Yes. So finding a good team is the hardest thing most entrepreneurs do. And because it's so hard, a lot of entrepreneurs don't do it. They either get a mediocre team. They're like, oh, my old dorm mate, or my old friend from high school is available and they can code. I'll just bring them on. And uh, they're not very good. They're like mediocre. Or I can find somebody cheap and just pay them, and then they do a little and then they disappear, or they do a bad job, and the startup ends up just stagnating and eventually dying. Instead, I tell people, put 80% of your time up front, not into the idea, not into raising money, not into trying to get publicity, articles written about you. 80% of the time into looking for the people. And what you want are people who are amazing, because it's so hard to succeed as a startup. Like, not my next book was surviving a startup, and literally, 90% of the big idea startups fail, like, in some point, usually near the very beginning. If you want to get over this hump, what you do is you spend a lot of time finding people who, number one, you're like, how could I get that amazing coder? Like, who could be working for Microsoft for 6 figures, who could be, working anywhere for a really good salary, to quit their great cushy job with stock options and benefits and come work for my startup for no money, and a dream and like some shares in that are worthless. Like, how can I convince them? Would they have to be absolutely insane? They would. The only way to get this person is if you, first of all, that's why not picking a single idea is important. Because if you pick a single idea, they may be like, oh, I don't like the idea. Or, oh, I don't want to work on somebody else's idea. People have egos, right? They're like, I want to do my own thing. If you pick an area that you're really passionate about, that you think is ripe for change, with new technology, new business models, things like that, and you find other people who see that potential, they're like, yes, this area, we could change this area. And you don't have to, you say, I have a lot of ideas about this area, but it's something I feel passionate about. And you seek out other people whose passions are aligned. That's first of all, because then as you generate ideas together, it's not your project, it becomes their project, and they take ownership. And that's why they'll quit Microsoft, because people want more than just the money. They want to do something amazing together, right? They're all, these are the people you want. These are the natural startup founders. So you want to find them, but you want to bring them in a way where it becomes all of your baby, not just yours. And the second question is, where are these people? Like, how do you even meet them? And to answer that, you meet them where they naturally gather. So if you're an entrepreneur, you're probably going to business networking events and online stuff. And what you're meeting are a bunch of other entrepreneurs who are trying to raise money, trying to grow their companies, doing this. Maybe you meet some investors, but you aren't meeting like that great designer, that amazing designer, or that incredible coder, that you really need to get your project going. If you want to meet these people, don't expect to meet them at the normal places. You have to go to where they go. If there's a coder, what are the groups that they hang out at? What are the meetup groups that they go to? Like the MongoDB meetup group, that Jode, Node, what is it? Whatever technology it is out there. Node.js is what I was thinking of. Node.js group that they are meeting to learn, improve their skills, get knowledge. You show up at one of those. I almost guarantee you'll be the only non-coder there. And why is that wonderful? You won't understand a thing, which is fine. Maybe you'll learn something, right? Just by osmosis being there. But what you will do is be surrounded by amazing coders, like who are totally into their thing, who are totally into, and it could be an online group. It could be a chat forum. It could be an actual in-person meetup. In-person meetups are naturally the best. You can make small talk and stuff. Whatever way, you just have to work on it. You have to go to all these meetings and you will meet people, and then you start telling them about your passions. You listen to them. Well, if you find that intersection, then you are, that's the beginning of finding a great person.
That is so incredible. You gave me so much information. I'm just going to quickly recap. You said spend 80% of your time developing a team. Don't focus on a single idea, but figure out an area that you want to create an impact and let the idea kind of naturally form once you create the team. And I think the last piece of advice really hit me. Go where the people you're trying to seek out go. Don't go to business networking events if you're not seeking out those types of people, because I'm in a unique place right now, or I wouldn't say unique, but I'm looking for coders. So this example.
So then you're like, okay, this is that's where the coders are.
Yeah.
Go on the geek forums, start talking to them, and then the more you talk to them, set up a Zoom call, whatever it is. Though you're going to start making relationships, and you'll start to find out, like, the great person, the great designer, the great coder, the great marketing person, they are constantly teaching themselves. They're downloading the latest SDKs. They're totally into it. And you can just tell, like, they're not like ordinary people who are like, oh, wait, tell me what to do. No, they're out there doing projects, a lot of them working on open source platforms, things like that. If you go there and you compliment them, hey, you made this great open source software, and you find open source software that might relate to what you're doing, and then you get a relationship going.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you so much for that. So moving on to your next book, Surviving Startups. Could you talk a little bit more about
Surviving a Startup, the crazy world.
Could you talk a little bit more about that book? Or is that what we just covered?
Well, no, we covered both. I mean, we covered a little of everything. So we started with Make Elephants Fly. In Surviving a Startup, it's really deep. So I've done 3 venture-funded startups myself, 2 bootstrap startups. I run Founders Space, work with hundreds of entrepreneurs. I just wanted to take all this core knowledge that I wish I had and put it into one place, so that entrepreneurs, like, you read it and you're like, I got it. These are I don't have to make all these mistakes. I can be original and make my own mistakes, which there are plenty still left to make. One of the areas that I cover is how, once you kind of get your idea, you get it going, you have an idea of what you want to build because you've totally engaged with the customer. How do you know what is the best business model? And I will tell you, entrepreneurs should not build products or services. And you're like, well, why not? Like, why not? What really makes a difference when you're an entrepreneur, if you want to build a big company, not just a small company, is, can you build something that is beyond a product or service? And I call it an ecosystem. And an ecosystem is where everybody your business touches, you bring them in and give them a way to not only participate in growing that business, but the more they engage with you, the more they help, the more value they create for everyone else in the ecosystem. So these tend to become the unicorns, the huge companies. And I'll tell you why. So let's say I get a customer, and the more they start working with me, the more value they're creating for themselves, and the more value they're creating for everybody else. Now, how would that work? Can I give you a simple example?
Yeah.
Yes. So a simple example. Look at Amazon. So when you engage with Amazon, why is Amazon so powerful? Number one, you're buying products. Every time you buy a product, you're giving Amazon data. So they know what not only you want to buy, but what all the customers with similar buying habits to you want to buy. So they can recommend products better. Number two, whenever you rate a product, what are you doing? Well, you're giving feedback based on your experience with the product, which makes you feel good. Like it's a great product, or I hate the product, whatever it is. But it's also creating value for everybody else in the ecosystem. They're reading all the reviews. The other thing they did was they brought in third parties. They didn't try to sell all the products themselves. So they have other sellers that they enable to sell to you. And what this does is it gives you value by allowing you to get a bigger selection than they could ever offer and lower prices than they could ever offer, because it creates the competition. So you're benefiting. And then it gives all of the vendors who in here access to more and more customers. So it becomes a virtuous circle. And this ecosystem becomes extremely hard to replicate. Other companies can't just step in here and copy them, because once they get going, they get a critical mass. The more customers they attract, the more vendors they attract, the more data they have, the more valuable, and the more ratings they have, the more valuable this ecosystem becomes for everybody participating in it. So you'll see this. It's done across Amazon, it's done across Google, it's done across Facebook, it's across Twitter. Most of these big companies operate on this principle at some level or another. And even Salesforce, like a B2B, you're like, well, they don't do it. Yes, they do. If you go into Salesforce, it's actually an outdated CRM. Like, it's not the best CRM. It's clunky. The user interface isn't the best. It costs more than other CRMs. Why do people go to Salesforce? Well, because when you enter this ecosystem, there's all these third-party developers. They've created all these things, add-ons to Salesforce that are just so powerful, that could do so many different things, that once you get in there, you don't, like, no other third party, even if they're cheaper, faster, whatever, newer, they can't offer what Salesforce offers. So think about that, whatever business you're in.
That's really interesting. So you're saying that the next $1 billion idea or unicorn, they most likely have an ecosystem. And so I guess my question is, most businesses fail because they never reach that critical mass. What are some, I guess, actionable steps that an entrepreneur can take to make sure they survive at least to that critical mass step, so this ecosystem can blossom?
Can go right. So number one, talk to a lot of customers, not a few customers, and don't have filters on. Like, literally, if you have 20 ideas, 30 ideas, and you're pitching them away, I'll tell you which you can figure out pretty fast if an idea has legs, any legs to even go to the next step. So I had entrepreneurs come to me, and I always say, talk to 100 customers, come back to me, tell me what they say. And they say, well, what do you think? I'd say, I think whatever these 100 customers think. So, I'm probably not your customer. Go talk to your actual customers, your perfect demographic, put it in front of them, get their opinion. So, like, one entrepreneur goes out, he talks to 100 customers. He comes back, Captain Hoff, I talked to 100 customers. They all said it's really nice. Come back when it's ready and they'll try it out. And I was like, oh, great. You know what they're telling you? And he's like, yeah, we're going to be a big hit. And I said, no, they're telling you you're totally going to fail. Like, you have nothing. He's like, what do you mean? 100 of them said it's pretty nice. Come back when it's ready. And I go, they're blowing you off. Everybody's going to say it's pretty nice. Come back later. They don't want to engage with you. This is what you need to hear. You don't need to hear it from all 100, but you need to hear it from enough of them to really have a business. Enough of them need to say, not, oh, that's nice, come back later. They need to say, oh my God, I need that. Can I get that today? How can I get that? Can I sign up? Where can I do it? Does it cost money? I don't mind paying. I have to get that right now. If you get that reaction, you have something. There is a customer out there who will buy your product. We all know, you download an app, you look at it, oh, that's pretty nice. A week later, delete, it's gone. Like, you don't care. Nobody needs nice products. Nobody cares about nice products. They want products that like, oh my God, I've been waiting for this. Like, I have been, so what I say is, entrepreneurs, they aren't visionaries who imagine a product and make the world like it, convert the world to love their products. Real entrepreneurs are quite the opposite. They're actually demand hunters. What a great entrepreneur is they are looking for pent-up pockets of demand that aren't being met by anybody else. And then they find those first, tap into them, and the pure need of that demand, the passion of the people waiting for that to come along, boom, that propels them. And if it's a big enough pocket of demand, the bigger the pocket of demand is directly proportional to how large that and how fast that startup will grow.
Oh my gosh. Well, this makes us, or this leads us to the next book. What are the 5 forces that change everything? Because I mean, this is, I love the enthusiasm. I hear so much. I'm looking at you and I'm like, I'm getting goosebumps just listening to this. I love everything you're saying. So
Thank
this
you,
is,
thank
so
you.
using that, let's move on to the next book.
So the five forces that change everything is all about how technology is reshaping the world. So all the core technologies coming out now. So I start the book with brain computer interfaces. Like we are developing in the lab right now devices that can literally read our brainwaves. And they actually work. Like if you stick a chip in somebody's head right now, which they've done to monkeys, they've done to rats, and they've done to people. They have people now who have chips in their head. They're completely paralyzed, so they don't mind getting a chip in their head. And they can literally control a robotic arm and feed themselves. Well, most of us don't need that. But what they also can do is they can also send messages just by thinking over the internet to other people, literally just by thinking. They can control computer screens, turn off and on lights, drive around in a wheelchair, all just by thinking. That, if you think about that, it's now you have to get a chip in your head. Most of us are probably going to pass on that. A few crazy people would get that chip. But they are developing right now, and DARPA, the government military organization that funded the development of the internet, is actually funding the development of these devices that all you would require is a headband, no chip. And they have crude versions of the headband out now. They're not that good. They can do a few things, like they can allow you to meditate, they can allow you to control a drone up and down, but very simple things. But they are developing more sophisticated ones with more sophisticated technologies that will be, like within our lifetimes, able to literally scan our brains and translate the brain signals that they pick up, the brain waves, into actual commands. And then eventually they'll be two-way, going both ways. How will the world change? How will it? And then I go on and I talk about virtual reality and augmented reality and how will this reshape the world we live in. We're just beginning to figure it out, have a lot of false starts. But if you combine like brain computer interfaces and augmented reality, then navigating these spaces isn't as much. Like right now, it's really hard if you've been in virtual worlds and stuff, except for like some games. It's really hard to use these applications in a true VR world with a headset like Oculus. But when we have brain computer interfaces, it's just thinking, and we're going to be able to move through them much in the same way we navigate the real world. It's totally changed. I mean, the book is really dense. So, I mean, by dense, I mean, I just cover a lot of amazing stuff. I go into gene editing, how we're going to right now we have the technology to literally start editing human genes and literally we can begin to create babies with different characteristics. We can change their hair color, their eye color, all sorts of things, whether we morally want to do it or not, their intelligence level. This is going to accelerate. Literally, we have unlocked the source code to all of life on Earth. All of life. We can, right now, we're doing this. We can make plants and animals that never existed before, species that never existed. Like God, we are gods, right? We have evolution under our control, and we can speed it up. And a company called Aqua Bounty has made salmon, gene-edited salmon, that literally grow twice as fast. Now, why is that interesting? Well, because if you run a fish farm and you can grow your salmon twice as fast, you just doubled your profits. Like you literally just doubled your profits. And people are consuming a lot of fish, as we know. So you just doubled production. They are working in Florida at the University of Florida on cows that are heat resistant. Why would you care if a cow is heat resistant? Well, we have climate change going on. A lot of cattle are going to die. Like if their genes aren't altered to deal with higher temperatures, when there's a heat wave, boom, your entire herd is wiped out. No, we can actually change that. Species of plants are going to all our crops are going to have to be gene edited just to survive because we can't get our act together on climate change. All of these, I go into space technology with Mars and Elon Musk and like, where is that headed? What's actually possible? What does the science say? So it just goes on, but you can tell I'm totally passionate about it.
Oh no, absolutely, you're 100% passionate, and this is why I brought you on as a guest because I just love hearing stories like this. So let's back up a little bit more to talk more about your personal life and how did you get into entrepreneurship? Out of the million career paths, why entrepreneurship and why are you in this space now? I mean, clearly you're passionate about, but what was your introduction to this space?
Well, I'm a dreamer, just like I think you are, just like most of the audiences out there listening. I love what I do. So I always wanted to dream. I actually got a degree in electrical computer engineering, but found no, I don't want to just sit behind a computer and code. Like it wasn't me. So one of my dreams was to be a filmmaker. So I applied to the top film schools in the US. I got into USC, University of Southern California. I got my master's degree there. I went out, worked in Hollywood, got promoted really quickly, became a Hollywood development executive. Like, oh, this is amazing. But I'm also a gamer. So I've always been coding games. That's what got me into coding, making games, making board games. And one of the producers at that company, his cousin was the founder of Sega, the big Japanese game company. He's an American, but he actually founded Sega. Stands for Service Games. It was after World War II. I met him and he said, look, we want to bring somebody from Hollywood to Japan. I'm in. I'll go. So I went there, went to Japan. It was the 90s. I ended up working with Michael Jackson. We were creating this huge video game ride. It was like crazy. I got to meet him. We're doing all this cool stuff. And then I was like, I can't work for a big company. I want to make my own games. So I quit. I came back to the US, my home area, which is near San Francisco. I settled in San Francisco and I launched my first company, LavaMind. And my first game, ironically, is called Gazillionaire. And what is it? How to become a gazillionaire. And it was an educational game. I wanted to build a nonviolent, really fun to play game that didn't feel educational at all. It just feels like, wow, it's an amazing game that taught people how to be entrepreneurs, which is sort of what I'm still doing. And so that game launched. It was a big hit, Gazillionaire. It's still available. It's on Steam. Like people play it today. It's like really popular today after all these years, because it's a crazy fun game. And so I made Gazillionaire. I made a series of these games. Then I went off and launched 3 venture-funded startups after that. Had an amazing time. After my third startup, I was ready to take a break. I was like, oh, I need a break. All my friends started to come to me. Captain Hoff, how do you raise, which is my gamer handle, Captain Hoff. How do you raise money? How did you do your company? How do I put together my business plan? Can you make introductions? And I started to help them. And then that was the genesis of Founder Space. Literally, that became what was kind of just me taking a break, became yet another startup and became Founder Space. And now we work all over the world with entrepreneurs.
Wow, that's such a great story. So film school to becoming a game, or you've always been a gamer, and so you developed your own game. I'm really curious about Gazillionaire. Tell me more about this game. Like, what are the rules, or like, how do you play?
So Gazillionaire, it received, it was compared to Monopoly on acid. So if you're playing the game of Monopoly and you are tripping out, that is Gazillionaire. So it's this crazy game set in this alternate universe with these really weird characters that I actually drew myself and had an artist then color in and bring to life and animate. It's in the galaxy of Gog, and your mission is to trade goods between planets. So you have to figure out every planet has a different economy. There are 7 planets. And in each of these planets, they have different supply and demand ratios. Like they produce certain products, there's an abundance, and other products, other planets, there's a shortage. And you have to figure this out while the computer, as well as other human beings, are competing against you. And you're like racing to certain planets because the one who gets there first can corner the market and sell it out and then change the pricing. And so it's a really fun game. You hire a crew. And then if you don't pay your crew, because you don't have to pay them, then they can go on strike and strand your thing. There are asteroids, there are pirates, there's you advertise and market and different locations. Anything you can imagine. There's insurance, so people can buy insurance. And a lot of times you're like, I don't want to spend the money, and then you get nailed by a meteorite or something like that, and you're like, oh my god, all this. But it's a really addictive game, is what it is.
I mean, I'm excited. I want to download it right now, right after this.
Go on Steam, you can get it. Go to gazillionaire.com.
Oh my gosh, that's great. So after that, taking a break involved or basically evolved into you starting this venture capital firm.
Yes. So it's like all things in life, some of the best things you do, you don't anticipate.
Okay, so I guess where are you currently at in this VC, I guess, firm stage? As in, you've been doing this for a few years, and where are you trying to take it?
Yeah. So we're really more of a startup accelerator. So we work closely with entrepreneurs and we help them with their business model, their business plan. We invest in some companies that we work with, we don't invest in them all. And we also work with governments around the world. So, one thing that differentiates us from a lot of other players in Silicon Valley is that we made relations because I love to travel. So, honestly, it was just like, it was part of the perk, right? So we made all these relationships. Like we work really closely with the South Korean government, really closely with the government of Taiwan, work in Australia, work all across Europe with different governments. Hopefully I'm about to sign a deal with Spain. I'm about to fly off actually to the country, not the state of Georgia, to go work with them and their entrepreneurs. And what we do is we train them, we evaluate them, and certain ones we recommend they come to Silicon Valley and we help them out when they land in Silicon Valley, connect with venture capital and all that stuff. We've even set up multiple founder spaces all across China. So in the big cities like Hangzhou, right outside Shenzhen, Xi'an, Nanjing, these major cities, we have these big founder spaces and they're run by our Chinese partners working with Chinese entrepreneurs. So it's been what it has been is it's been a wild ride over the past few years, all the crazy stuff, but also a really eye-opening and culturally transformative experience. I feel really lucky to be doing it.
That's absolutely amazing. So you have a lot of experience in the startup space, clearly. So what is something that if you had to redo, you would 100% always do? And what is something that, hey, VJ, don't ever do this. Make sure you don't make the same mistake I made.
So I've made a lot of mistakes. I put a lot of them in my book. Uh, One of the big mistakes I made, and this is why I think most entrepreneurs fail, is I stuck with the same idea too long. I believed when I started what's on that you don't give up. You never give up. Like if you believe in something, you just go for it. And that is true, but it's not true in the way a lot of people think. It's not true when it comes to the idea. So really great entrepreneurs they're always changing their ideas. Like they don't say the world has to conform to what's in my head. They say I need to figure out the world. That is a mentality. So I approach it more from like an artist point of view, and a lot of entrepreneurs do this. They're like, I'm going to prove to the world that I'm a visionary. This idea, and I had this idea, and everybody told me it was great. So I was like, I drank my own Kool-Aid, right? I went to people, I went to Disney, I went to all these, major, record labels and places like that, and I said, I can take we're creating a virtual world, but not like any virtual world you've seen. This is way back, like it's in the in the early 2000s, and I was like, we're not creating just an ordinary virtual world that you would go into with 3D graphics or whatever. We are creating an virtual world that spans the entire web. The entire World Wide Web. We're going to give you an avatar and you can walk across any website. You can meet other characters on these websites. You can discuss, like if it's a news site, you can discuss the news. If it's a site about art or books, you can discuss art or books. You can go on adventures, and we built wormholes and treasures and all this game stuff. And we're like, everybody's going to want to do this. And like Disney and all these other people were like, they wanted to put money in. Everybody's super excited. I raised a lot of money. And from this big hedge fund, I ended up raising it. And what I discovered was that the idea was brilliant. But when people would come in, and this was right when Facebook was taking off, people would come in, they would love it when they first started, but then invariably they would leave. They would leave because when they came in there, it wasn't about doing stuff with their friends. It was about doing stuff with random people they met on these websites. And what we learned is that people don't want to bump into random people for very long. They want to hang out with their friends. And so they were all moving to Facebook where all their friends are because that's who they wanted to chat with. They didn't want to chat with some random person on some website, even if they both liked the same band. It didn't mean they liked each other. That big disconnect I stuck with the original idea too long. I was too in love with it. Like I fell in love with my own idea and I wouldn't let it go. And I was like, oh, if we just iterate, if we just change this, if we just add more gameplay, if we just add a treasure hunts, if we just, did change the interface, then people will love it. Well, what I learned, and this is the most important lesson, is if the core doesn't work, the core idea of meeting somebody else you most likely don't know on a website, and interacting with them isn't exciting enough, then nothing else works. So if the core of your product doesn't resonate, just give it up right away. I should have given it up like right after launch. Like it's really hard. We built this thing, and even during launch, like I was testing it out on people, and they were saying, "Yeah, this is nice. This is interesting." Just like I told you, and they weren't, but they didn't. It wasn't. They weren't crazy enough about it.
Yeah, so it's about not letting our egos get in the way and just
Not letting your egos, not being delusional, like, because all these people told me it was great because like I pitched it to you. I'm sure you thought, wow, walking on, and we did it all technologically, like it was just so beautiful. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you can spend forever building the perfect software, which we did, but if it doesn't strike a core desire in people and fulfilling what they need, you're not going anywhere.
thanks so much for sharing that lesson. So I've maybe this is a rumor, but I'm not sure. I've had when I was talking to VCs, they say, VJ, I don't even invest in businesses unless they've had at least, or unless the founders have had at least 2 failed businesses in the past. Is that something that is real, or is that just this one VC that said that?
That's just one VC. So VCs, look, people love success. So if you've been successful, they're going to throw money at you. And so don't let them tell you if you failed, they'll only give you money if you failed. Like if you came to them and you had 2 big successes, I guarantee they would be writing that check without even looking at your business plan. But the bottom line is nobody wants to fail. It's not fun to fail. I didn't want this product I built to fail. Like I thought it was a really cool idea. The the moral of the story is if you fail, which you probably will if you're trying new crazy ideas, which like I was trying, you can learn something from that failure. And that learning something, if you're smart and you're aware, that can make you a better entrepreneur. And a lot of great entrepreneurs fail. Bill Gates, nobody talks about it, but his first venture failed, like it didn't work out. All these, a lot of Steve Jobs's products failed. There's the Lisa, there's the Newton, the list goes on. Next computers never really amounted to anything. He had lots of failures. You're going to fail if you try enough things. It's just the odds are there. But if you can learn from these and if you are resilient and you bounce back, yes, it can make you a better entrepreneur. Some entrepreneurs fail and they never become better. Let's face it. Just having a failure isn't any reason for me to invest in you. In fact, it is a red flag. Like what it means, it's a red flag until I talk to you and I start to understand, well, what did you learn out of that? What was your experience? What would you do differently? And if I see how your mind works and I can really sense that you overcame a lot of adversity, you're the type of person, who doesn't give up, but is open to change and flexible and all these things, then I can start to, well, that's the type of person who will eventually succeed. That can give me data on knowing you better. And by knowing you better, then I can judge whether you have a potential to a greater chance of succeeding in the future. But all those failures is data for me and data for you. It depends how we use it.
I think that's beautifully put. Definitely connecting the dots between what someone else said and from your personal experience. And I know throughout this this podcast episode, we talked about pieces of advice, but if you had one piece of advice that you would give to a startup entrepreneur, what would it be?
My one piece of advice would be don't give a shit. I'm sorry. Like, it doesn't matter as much as you think. Like, you think like this startup is everything. You think it'll be the end of the world if it doesn't work out. As long as you're still breathing and you have your health, you're fine. Like you have the rest of your life to screw up again or make billions of dollars. But don't let any of this stuff get you down, get you too high on your own ego or too down, because that's where the danger lies. The danger lies in, I will tell you, all of us face adversity. We face adversity in our startups. We face adversity in relationships we have, with at home and things like that. We face adversity with our health. People have health problems all the time. So it's just a million things, finances, right? When you're doing a startup, you're being hit up from all sides. The one thing I can tell you is that you have to be able to control your own anxiety levels, because when you are extremely anxious, you tend to make poor decisions that aren't good for you or your business. So when you do that, when you are at this point where you're feeling a lot of anxiety, 99% of the reason you're feeling that anxiety is because you are making yourself feel that. Whatever you're telling yourself is causing that stress. It's not, external events are external events. They will be whatever they are, but how you interpret them is everything. So listen to what you're doing and then ask yourself, 3 months from now, will this matter? I mean, I'm having a terrible day. I'm ready to shout at people in my company and maybe break a relationship. Will I even remember this event 3 months from now? Or will it matter to me? Maybe I'll remember it, but will it matter? A year from now, I probably won't even remember today. Like, who even thinks about like every day of their life? Like, will just be like another day. 5 years from now, I can almost guarantee you there are very few days I think of that were 5 years ago, and a lot of them, they were very momentous days in my life. So, and none of that will matter. So if you put yourself in the future, looking back on who you are now, use that mind trick, all of a sudden you start to see, I should just let this go and focus on what I can do.
I love that piece of advice. It's so concrete, so straight to the point. Just don't give a shit. Move on. Things will work itself out if you let it work itself out. And here's a question which I ask almost everyone that comes on the show. I think I missed maybe one or two, but I'll make sure I don't miss it. Other than the 3 books that you've written, what is your favorite book that you recommend for entrepreneurs?
I love so many books. I read like new books every week, like at least one new book a week. I'm going to give you some books that I've read recently that I really like. So, one book that I read that I really loved is called Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, the founder of Nike. That's a great book. It's just a great story. It's a story of how he got Nike going, all the trials he went over, it wasn't easy. And that guy is a true entrepreneur. Like, he has it down to his bone. Like, he's amazing. So just Shoe Dog.
Shoe Dog. Okay. Well, I'll put all that in the show notes. And Captain Hoff, this has been an incredible interview. Thank you so much. And where can our audience get in touch with you?
So where they can get it, I'm super easy. So just go to founderspace.com, Founderspace. Come there. My books are there, all the different books. But really, there's tons of material, tons of free videos. We have an online startup kit. We have all this other resources for entrepreneurs. So you can read and you can contact me there. So Founderspace, or I'm on almost every social network. LinkedIn is a great one. If you go to LinkedIn, just search for Steve Hoffman and Founderspace and you can message me.
Awesome. I'll put all this in the show notes. Everyone that's listening can get in touch with Captain Hoff. Captain Hoff, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, VJ. It's been awesome.
I love your energy, by the way. I just got to end it with that. Just feel so lifted up. And whoever's listening to this, hopefully you guys have a great day listening with all this enthusiasm from Captain Hoff.